Welcome back to the Marquee Garage. We're continuing to work on the 67 Camaro project. Got some key updates coming in this video. We'll be working on the other side of the shop this time. So I got the car moved from the right-hand side of the shop where I've been doing most of the work over to the left-hand side of the shop where I've got my two-post lift. So what we're gonna be tackling on this part of the build is we'll be working on getting the front subframe out from underneath the car. Got that soaking with some Croil. So we'll be getting the front subframe off. We'll have to disconnect the steering column, disconnect brake lines, a couple other things, and then we'll roll that out. Also, while we've got it on this side with the lift, we'll lift it up and we'll drop the rear suspension out with the leaf springs. Get all the suspension out. Once the rear suspension and the front subframe, all the front suspension is rolled out, we'll lift the car up. We'll start taking some measurements on the underside of the car so we can verify all the factory dimensions for the frame jig that we're going to be building here shortly. All right, so we'll show you guys the setup on the lift. Okay, so I got the lift all set up. I got 4x4s underneath the arms, and they're running underneath the rocker right up against the pinch weld between those 2 points. Same thing on this side. Got a 4x4 running across in the lift to kind of spread the weight along that whole rocker so we can lift the entire tub up and have access to both remove the front subframe as well as the rear suspension. I think the game plan for this, because everything that I've heard is that the front of the car is pretty light. I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and remove the rear suspension, take some weight off of that, and then we'll go ahead and then we'll drop the front subframe. All right, so we'll go ahead and lift the car up. Put the locks in on the lift, and that lock's good. Okay, we're to the first lock. That's probably as high as I want it to start working on the suspension. So we'll go ahead and set it down on the locks, take a look at everything. All right, get the lock set on the driver's side. Confirm the lock is set over here, and it looks good. Let's take a quick peek underneath the car before we get underneath of it. It looks pretty good to me. I guess we'll shake it real quick to all right, feels pretty secure on there. So like I said, I think the game plan, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take the rear suspension out. We'll carefully disconnect all the shackles. We'll get everything loose, and then we'll set it back down on the ground, bust everything loose, and then just lift the car straight off. And then we'll roll the rear suspension out of there. All right, so first we're gonna take the wheels off, take a look at everything. These are the wrong lugs for these wheels. These were the lugs to some center lines we had on the car for a while. Man, look at that. Ain't much left of that tire, down to the cords. Okay. All right, so before we drop the rear end, we're gonna have to take a couple things loose. So let's take a look. All right, so first, we got to remove the e-brake cable from the frame rail. There's a pin we're going to have to pull out there. Up here, we're going to have to remove the brake line from the body, take that clip off, and then disconnect the line right here. We'll disconnect the fitting there. And then on this side, there is an e-brake. There's a clip right there too that we'll have to remove. So once we do that, all the lines that are holding everything up will be removed. Okay, so we'll start with pulling this clip out. Not really sure how this clip works, but okay, there we go. There's that like butterfly looking clip. All right, and then we can pull that out. All right, that's one e-brake cable. And we got the other e-brake cable. I guess you just kind of pull. And there's that. And then this just comes out. Okay. All right, that's that e-brake cable. And we'll go ahead. Okay, so that's 7/16. We'll go ahead and we'll disconnect the bracket first, so we don't have brake fluid going everywhere. I think we'll just cut it just below the fitting so we can save that line, so we know how to either make our own lines or bend something up. So we'll go ahead and we'll cut this right there, okay? And then we can take these bolts down. Okay. There's that bracket, that's loose. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll disconnect the shock over here. Ooh, man. I did not want to budge. I might need the big ratchet for this. Ooh, whew, that's on there. Okay. All right. Ooh, that was kind of scary. That dropped more than I thought it was. All right, so we got the nut was just loose on this one. So get this washer off. That one's in there. We can't get that because there's freaking wheels in. Get this sucker in there. Take some tension off the shock. Okay, that sucker's in there. not spinning. Might be seized to the shock. This might be coming out with the grinder. Get comfortable. Whew. That was a little easier. Let's see if that bolt will move now. Now I gotta cut this side with the Sawzall. There we go. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll get these bolts loose. Started working on this one right here. What we'll do is we'll cut this nut off. We'll go ahead and we'll head to the other side. We'll set that over here. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll get this one loose now. These actually aren't the worst because I've been soaking these in Croil pretty good. Okay. All right. Okay, got that one off. Now we'll see if this one will budge. Yeah, that one's not too bad either. Guess we'll go ahead and we'll take off both these bolts and then or both these nuts, and we'll see kind of what we're looking at. We'll head up to the torque boxes in the front. Okay, got that nut off. We'll go ahead and we'll head to do the torque boxes in the front. All right, so with the nuts off the shackles in the rear, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna drop the car down, and then we'll start taking the torque boxes out of the front. So we'll go ahead and we'll drop the car. We'll see if we can get to these torque boxes while the car's up. Okay. All right, now let's see what size these bad boys are. Okay. Smaller than 5/8. Yeah, not 5/8. They're surprisingly small. These are 9/16. All right. Okay. Okay, that's one. Let's see if we can get to this one. I think we're gonna need extension for that one. Okay. All right. Last one on this side. Not coming off. I don't think we hit that one with any penetrant. We'll come back to that one. All right. Okay. Now for the torque boxes on this side. Oh man, I think it wants the bigger one. Well, let's see if we take the extension off, might be able to get it. Let's see here. Lovely. Something spinning in there. Sweet. It's spinning on the inside. All right, we lifted the car back up just because it was too much of a battle with it on the ground. I'm gonna see if I can, it seems like these are fucking spinning. Let's see if we can hit it with this and if it'll. That one's spinning, unfortunately. I don't know how we're gonna get that out. Let's see if this one will come out. That one's spinning too. Let's see. All right, that one came out. All right. Feels like there's some sort of I honestly don't know how I'm gonna get to those. All right, we're back on the driver's side now. We'll see if we can spin this one fast enough to see if it'll come out. I got a jack underneath it, so. Nope. I think that one's just spinning in there. That's a little frustrating. So we got one spinning on the driver's side and then two spinning on the passenger side. I guess we'll have to figure out how to hold those in place. Oh, this is frustrating. So here's where we're at. Fortunately, I was able, I can't see anything. All right, so on the passenger side, this bolt is spinning. So is that one. Fortunately, that one, which is the hardest one to get to, came out surprisingly. Over on the driver's side, the story is opposite. We were able to get this bolt out, but the one back in there, I couldn't get out. So now we're gonna have to figure out a way on that one. We might have to cut the floor open to get to that. Over on the passenger side, I think we're gonna just be able to grind the heads off, and we'll have to fix everything else later. Alrighty. Okay, there's that one. I wonder with this tension on it, if we could break this bad boy loose. Where's the socket? All right, let's see if it'll fucking do it. Nope. All right, well that side is loose now. All right, so we're working on getting the rest of the bolts off the rear suspension. The one on the driver's side is being a real pain. I was able to grind the two heads off on the passenger side, and the whole spring box dropped down. But what I'm gonna have to do on the driver's side, all right, so let's fix this. This is too bright. All right, so what I did is, so this body, this hole has a rubber plug in it, is a reference point underneath. And I measured down and up from it, as well as over from it, to figure out where the captured nut is in the frame rail. And this, from here to here to here, is where I need to slice open. I'm gonna try to just slice over, back, and then over, peel this up so that I can just hammer this back flat and then weld the floor back together later. Hopefully I don't need to open up more, but this is what we're gonna start it with. Cut that open to try to get to that spinning nut on the back side to drop the last bolt, to finally drop the springs from the front. Okay, so I showed you guys how I measured over. So I sliced this open, sliced there, hammered this piece of floor back, and then there was the nut that was spinning. And so I was able to grind off the nut that was spinning that came through. I'll probably have to fix some of this just because it's pretty thin there now. We'll either replace the whole torque box or we'll just splice in a piece later. But yeah, we got that down. The driver's side spring dropped down. So now we'll get the jacks out that were supporting the wheels. We'll get those out. Then we'll lower the car, and then we'll knock the bolts out on the rear shackles to try to remove the rear suspension. All right, we are ready to start dropping the jacks to see what happens with the rear end. All right, let's see how this does. Okay. All right, so we got this one. We'll drop this one down slowly. All right, come on. Okay, that one's dropped out. Okay, the spring is hanging up there in the front. Okay, we'll drop this side down. All right. Okay. Slowly drop that down. Okay. All right. That one's down. Pull these jacks out. Get the jacks out of the way. All right. Now we'll go ahead and we'll drop the car down, and we'll loosen the spring shackles at the back and try to drop all this rear suspension out. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll lift it up a bit to get it off the locks. All right, off that lock. off that lock, and then we'll go ahead and we'll drop the car down. That was too much. Okay, all right. Now it's time to take these. That was too much too. It just needs to come down just a hair. Okay, now it's back on the wheels. All right, now we'll try to get these back bolts out. Let's see what that looks like. All right, so we got this shackle broken loose. We just used a lever and we levered this one off. Then we levered that off. So the spring is just setting on the frame rail right now here in the back, which is a little bit sketchy because I'm underneath the car. All right, and then we'll do this one. We'll do this one and we'll try to not be underneath the car. Okay. All right, so we'll lever this one off. Okay, all right. That one's off. Put that out of the way. And we'll lever. Okay, that one's loose now too. All right. Okay. Pull that forward. Okay, now what we should be able to do is we should be able to just lift the car up and then roll this out the back. Okay. All right, we've got everything loose. We should just be able to lift the car up and the suspension should remain underneath. Let's see here. Okay, so let's see here. What are we stuck on? We're stuck on part of the lift over on that side. Okay, so we're gonna need to let the lift down. Okay, let's see if we can pull this out now. Ooh, okay, all right. All right, it's free. Now we just gotta position it so it's not gonna. All right, we should be able to roll it out now. Okay. All right. Let's move this creeper out of the way, and then we can get this out of here. All right, it's out. Rear suspension's out of the car. Definitely a couple sketchy moments, but we got it done. These look okay. I didn't damage these at all. The front spring boxes, those look good. That one looks good too. Yeah, rear end came out all right. Moving on to the front suspension, we got the handful of brake lines that were connected to the frame. We got some hangers loose. We disconnected a few brake lines. We got some of the fuel lines that were attached to the frame off. We went ahead and we took care of the steering box. Okay, so we also disconnected the steering box, the steering shaft from the box. We took out those bolts, pried everything loose. So everything should be ready to go on the front suspension. To drop it down, we just got to take the bolts out of the two in the firewall and then the two underneath the seat pan on both sides. I think the game plan is we'll take out the ones in the rear because that's further underneath the car. We'll take those out with it up in the air. Then we'll drop it down, and then it's much easier to get to these front ones with it on the ground, like from the outside of the car. And then while it's on the ground, we'll take those out, and then we'll lift the body up. All right, let's get after it. All right, we're on the driver's side here. Let's see if this one's gonna come out without a fight. Not bad. Okay. All right. That one came out pretty easily. All right, passenger side. Okay, we are on the passenger side. Now we'll take this one down. All right, not bad either. All right, now we're ready to take out the driver's side front bolt. Let's see if it's the same size bolt. Yep, it is, 15/16. Okay. All right, got that one off. Okay, passenger side. Last one. There it is. Front suspension out. Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll lift the car out so we can roll the front suspension out. Sorry, we're gonna lift the car up. Oh, we're hung on something. We're hung on the e-brake cable. All right. Okay, we got the e-brake cable loose from the body, so now we're ready to start going again. We'll lift the body up again. We caught on now. Oh, brake lines in the front. All right, so take 3. We'll lift the body up again. Forgot about the brake lines running down from the, what's that thing called? The proportioning valve. So it should be loose now because we were lifting the whole front by the brake lines. I wasn't really concerned about them because they're gonna get replaced anyways. This car is getting everything. Ah, one more. We forgot one more. Okay, take 4. In because we'll probably just leave the body hanging so we can roll some stuff under it for space. All right. All right, and that's as high as I can go in my garage without Okay, front suspension is down. The whole front subframe is off the car. So we'll go ahead and we'll roll this out of here, and we'll take a look underneath the entire car real quick. Kind of see where everything's at and how bad everything is finally. All right, we'll take one look underneath the car and then kind of wrap things up for this part. Since we got all the suspension off. So this is kind of a first look, kind of as I'm going through it as well. Okay, so this is kind of a final look before we end this part. So we're definitely gonna have to fix this trunk drop down. That's pretty haggard in there. The underside of the trunk pan looks okay, but we know the inside's bad. We got a good look up in here. You can definitely tell that we're gonna need to fix this frame rail. This drop down looks all right, but it's probably gonna need to get fixed, or at least need a patch up on the front there. The front of the frame rail looks pretty good. It's probably gonna be all right. This side, I think this is gonna clean up. I think that'll be fine. This LED light's kind of fighting me trying to show this rust. I think the driver's frame rail is gonna be all right. Moving over here, the front spring perch or mounting point is okay. We're gonna have to do some repairs to where we cut it apart. The floor pans look great from the rear end leaking. This spring mounting point, that one didn't give me too much trouble. That one came apart. And then up front, all the floors look great from the underside. I'm really happy with that. I think essentially all the floors are gonna stay. Just need to do rockers. Yeah, it's looking pretty good underneath. All right, let's go to the front. Here's the the front suspension. Got the front subframe all dropped out. That's in pretty good shape. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's definitely going to be a usable piece. We may need to do a little bit of repair to these mounting points. This one's a little rough. It's not bad, but it might need to get touched up. This one was fixed at some point with a huge washer. You can see the welds around here. And then if you lift it up, you can see, let me get this light. You can see that it was repaired at some point. This one looks pretty good. All the frame looks solid. All this looks pretty good. All right, so that's probably gonna do it for this part. Suspension disassembly on the 67 Camaro. Got the front subframe dropped, all the suspension out, got all the rear suspension out. Next thing we're gonna have to work on, getting checking all the measurements underneath the car to determine that and verify that all the factory specs are gonna work for the frame cart. What we'll do is we'll go underneath the car, we'll start checking measurements, start laying the frame cart out and start burning that together. I'll try to do a decently in-depth video on how I build the frame cart and get everything situated for that. But yeah, that kind of wraps it up for this part. Thanks for watching the Marquee Garage and just seeing some progress on the 67 Camaro project. All right guys, until next time.